My name's Sarah Mould, and I'm one of the authors of the Dementia Care Training Library, one of Pavilion's publications. As it is Dementia Action Week this week, I've been asked to share my thoughts with you about the topic of this week, which is diagnosis. I'm sure some of you may be aware that many people have a very positive experience of the diagnostic process, but we also perhaps are very aware that for many people, we're not quite getting it right in terms of the experience of diagnosis, how that information is shared, whether there is counselling before, during and after that process, and what sort of support is made available for people after they've been diagnosed. I guess to put this into a real life context for you, and I have permission to share this information with you, my mum was diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease in November of last year. She was assessed at her local memory clinic in the presence of my brother, who was there to support her and provide additional information as well. And at the beginning of that meeting, that assessment, my mum was told that she was there because her GP had referred her to the memory clinic because she was having some problems with her memory. And the person who assessed her said it's probably nothing to worry about. There's all sorts of reasons why our memory changes as we get older. It could be dementia, but it probably isn't. So we're just going to do this assessment and see how it goes. So the assessment was completed. And about 3 or 4 weeks later, my mum received a telephone call from the person who had assessed her. And the person asked to speak to my brother straight away. So mum, kind of a bit nonplussed, handed the phone to my brother. And the person said, "Oh, we have the results of your mum's assessment, and we have every reason to believe that she has Alzheimer's disease," which is a difficult piece of information to receive, even if you are kind of suspicious that that might be the case. So my brother obviously took that information, and the next thing that he was asked was, "Do you think your mum would like to know?" And that kind of nonplussed him even more, because actually his immediate thought, well, wasn't it my mum's decision? Shouldn't you be asking my mum that question? But it seemed quite apparent that the person was not too sure whether she wanted to speak to mum about it, and ultimately said to my brother, "Well, I'll leave it to you and your sister to decide if you want your mum to know or not. I've left a prescription with your GP, which you can pick up for some medication which might help, and possibly we'll see mum in about another 6 months." And that was that. That was the diagnostic process for my mum in November of last year. So interestingly, my brother and I did have a conversation, and we said, well, my mum has every right to know what her diagnosis is, and it would have been nice to have had that opportunity maybe before, to have a professional talk her through actually what the assessment was about, what it might find out, whether she would like to know, how she would like to be informed of that information. But none of that happened. So my brother and I felt, well, it's down to us really. So we agreed that we would ask my mum, you had the assessment. They did wonder whether it might be Alzheimer's disease or a type of dementia, and would you want to know? And at that time, my mum said, well, yes, I think I would like to know. So it was actually me that told my mum that she had Alzheimer's disease. And in some ways, that felt okay, because it was coming from somebody that she knows and loves. Hopefully it was in an environment that was supportive for her, but it's not something that I necessarily felt that I should be doing. Supporting, certainly, but actually telling her was quite an interesting thing for us to experience as a family. Since then, mum has decided that perhaps she doesn't really want to know too much about what's going on, but actually she hasn't had a huge amount of additional support or feedback from anybody professionally. She's taking her medication, which seems to be really helping her, which is great. But I just wanted to share that with you because, as I say, it's a very recent experience of a diagnostic process, if you like. And because I'm very much into kind of learning and education, I hope that you'll find this story helpful. Please do think about that experience. If you are involved in making a diagnosis or supporting somebody through a diagnosis, please do think about how significant it is for the person and for their family. Think about the rights of the person that you are assessing and diagnosing. Please do think about perhaps adopting an approach which would involve some pre-diagnostic counselling through that process, and counselling afterwards, because it is life-changing. And as we've said, there are some areas that are getting it really, really right, and some areas where perhaps my story and my mum's story might help you to think a little bit more about what you could do differently, or celebrate what you're doing really, really well. So as it's Dementia Action Week, please take action wherever you work to try to think about the diagnostic process, how that's experienced, and if there's anything that you can do to make it better for people if needed. Thank you. Bye.